Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about social media, or rather some of the things that people do on social media, prominently bragging. Why? Because it's one of these things that we see a lot of. And it's something that again has been highlighted to me this week in regards to individuals, certain individuals that I deal with bragging about certain things on social media. And when called on it by others or by myself in a couple of instances, they didn't seem to realize either necessarily what they were doing, how they were doing it, or that it was both harmful to them and negatively impacting others around them. And so I kind of wanted to get into it. So I've done a little bit of digging, but for the most part, this is something that's still being researched at the moment because social media is still a new thing. So the long-term overarching effects of all of this are still somewhat nebulous in regards to kind of a bottom line of what are the effects. But I'm going to touch on a few things. So the first thing I actually want to talk about is what bragging is, because bragging is just a form of sharing. But sharing generally tends to be a positive thing, right? Sharing sad moments in your lives allows for other people to empathize with you and support you if you need it. Sharing things like a promotion or the fact that you just got engaged allows other people to engage with you on that and be happy for you. Sharing generally is good to do and supports your happiness, either by picking you up from where you're sad, bringing you back to somewhere more happy, or maintaining that level of happiness overall by having people kind of work in and communicate with you on the things that have made you happy that you wanted to share in the first place. But the difference that bragging has is that bragging tends to focus much more on eliciting certain responses, mostly jealousy or envious, tending towards maybe some of the more negative emotions, anger even. I got this rather than you, haha. I've got more of this than you do. Feel jealous of me, feel envious, and so it tends to highlight the level of dysfunctional behavior that this individual is going through if they are bragging in the first place. It's something that already elicits a negative emotion from others, and yet then it's not just informing to kind of be useful and to help people, to inform them. If you put forward a piece of information on Facebook, for instance, that you've found this article and this is what it says in brief and this is why you like it, and then you leave the link down below, then that's you've written the article, sorry, because we're bragging specifically about ourselves. So you've written this article and it's about this, it's very well received, here's the link, I hope you guys enjoy it. Then that kind of little abstract and the little commentary on it beforehand and then actually leaving the link and stuff like that is useful to anyone that sees that post, because they'll go, oh, well, okay, so this person's written an article, may as well check out the article. The article might be helpful or useful or interesting or just fun or whatever, but then if you just turn around and go, I've had a whole slew of things published in these various places, look at how amazing I am, without any links, without telling people where they can read these things, or anything like that, it's literally kind of I'm gonna put myself above everybody else, and it's when you see that kind of thing, it starts you asking questions about that person, doesn't it? Well, why have they done this? Why do they feel that they needed to puff themselves up more than anyone else, and it's one of these things that has been studied, and it's one of the things that's been studied maybe a little bit more in certain areas than others, But you've got certain psychologists who kind of where was this? They did a study at where was the study done? The Department of Psychology at the University of Houston in Texas. They did a study in regards to how people share positive events in their lives, and what they found in brief was bragging, even when in conjunction with other forms of sharing, was related to more undesirable traits. Individuals who tend to brag when they are sharing positive events were more likely to be men, reported less agreeable, less conscientious, and less empathic, whereas those who tended to brag and mass share reported the highest levels of narcissism. So ultimately, you're looking here at the kind of two different tiers of bragging. You've got the people who are maybe just more likely to brag in conversation, who tended to be the ones that were less agreeable. Yeah, they're more likely to be willing to impose themselves in some way in a conversation, put themselves across. Less conscientious, well, yeah, they're probably going, if they're going to be bragging more specifically, then they're probably going to be more free with the way that they're just going to be throwing stuff out there. And less empathic, because if you start bragging about a thing, if you start talking about a thing, then there's a good chance you're ignoring the response and you're more liking the sound of your own voice and you telling yourself how awesome you are. So there's a good chance that that's not going to be the case as well. Lower empathy with those people who tend to brag, and especially those who mass share, having higher levels of narcissism. Now, we talked about narcissism not so long ago, and it was an interesting kind of thing there where I was specifically talking about how to ensure that you aren't a narcissist, how to make sure that you are not imposing those negative things on others through your actions. Not getting so wrapped up in yourself, because quite frankly nowadays narcissism is promoted in various ways, in areas of individualistic, self-serving, kind of predatory culture, like in the world of work, in the corporate world of work especially. It's one of these things that is becoming more and more of a problem, more and more of a trait of people that tend to be in those environments, because it's their way of coping. And so as a result, it doesn't surprise me that men are more likely to brag and less agreeable and less conscientious and less empathic. That's kind of a given. That's the way that they're designed. Men will, going back to the tribal idea that I go back to a fair few times, evolutionary psychology kind of style. If you've got a group of men and they're all competing to be the one in charge, the one in charge of the hunt, the one in charge of the tribe, the one who's got the best, wives or whatever, the one who gets first pick of the food, then they're going to brag. They're going to puff up their chest. They're going to confront each other. Low agreeableness. They're going to potentially do so in a rash fashion. Low conscientiousness. They're potentially going to go and do so in regards to and completely rather disregard the feelings and the effect that they will have on other people. Lower empathy. And why do they do this? Well, it's so that they can get the first pick of the food, the first pick of the women, the first pick of whatever else, to be in charge, to direct, and it becomes that kind of dominance fight, the same thing that you see in animals all over the world. And so, that's the way that it kind of, we can expect there to be more bragging among men. But in terms of bragging generally, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's you are more likely to brag and share en masse if you're a narcissist. Why? Well, because it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're a narcissist, you are above and beyond anyone else, and you are lovely and perfect, and everyone should worship you, and so you should go and do this. So the effects, though, other than highlighting to everybody else that you're dysfunctional, and potentially having lots of people go, well, you're sharing an awful lot of positive events, but there's no content to it. So you're not sharing holiday photos. You're not sharing holiday pictures and going, this was a really great holiday. That's not a brag, because people can actually view the pictures. You're allowing them an insight. Now, there might be an element of bragging in there, depending on what you say accompanying those pictures. But for the most part, if you're just going, I just had a wonderful holiday with a group of friends that I really enjoy, and here are some of the cool things that we saw along the way, at the very least, people can go and take a look and go, wow, those are some really cool pictures. That's potentially enriched my life, enriched my day. If you go and detail how amazing your holiday was because of how expensive it was, because of how amazing all the things were that you provided, because you stayed in all these great hotels and all that kind of thing, setting yourself apart from everyone else, then, stepping above them, being like, look and worship and envy me, that's where the problems start. That's where people don't like you. You begin to isolate yourself through it. But one of the other things is that one of the kind of common side effects that was listed was that in doing this, you get ingratiators coming to you, and so people who are less verbal, of a lower status, less capable, but who want to farm and kind of cultivate your seeming awesomeness that you keep talking about, for them to kind of feed off. And so, if you want to gain a lot of people around you, then yeah, potentially bragging can be incredibly efficient, but expect to pay a price afterwards, because these people that are coming to act as kind of an entourage, as looking to gather around you, they're there to feed off you. They're parasites. They're not anything else. So, there's a good chance that you bragging and attracting all those people to you, that level of disingenuity and stuff like that, that's going to be the thing that then starts draining you. So, better not start bragging and keep yourself humble in the first place, or at the very least add enough additional content to make it informative, fun, useful, or something like that, rather than just going, look at how fucking awesome I am. But then the one thing that was also noted was that you can potentially throw out a lot of information to people through bragging. They can tell what kind of person you are. They can tell that that's the kind of thing that's going on. But also, social media is a different beast to just bragging in person. Bragging in person at a party about one specific thing or something like that, you affect maybe a handful of people, the people that are actually stood there talking to you, listening. You do it on social media, the whole world can see that. All it takes is one person to screenshot it and share it again out into the rest of the world, and you don't know what kind of impact that's going to have on you, on other people. It's you've got reach there, which is potentially where one of the biggest threats comes from in regards to this. But there was one thing that stood out from some of this that was actually an upside, and that was that the level of competence of these of people who brag is, when in isolation, seen to be higher than those who don't brag. Now, there's a part of me that goes, right, so this is useful in interviews where you can sit down and you've tailored your CV and you're only presenting specific information, so you bragging about part of it makes you seem more confident, more competent rather, and so they go, okay, well, you stood out. Fine, there's some sense to that. But again, that's in isolation with something very specifically tailored. Social media, they can see every post you've made. They can see all of this other information about you, your family, the things you do, the place you work. There's so much additional information there that trying to brag in isolation in a tailored fashion, it only ever highlights then the further hypocrisies, inadequacies, lies potentially, and other things that you have twisted into your stories, into your brags, to the extent that you're only ever highlighting more and more of your own weaknesses through doing so. So to come to draw to an end to this, like, why is bragging on social media bad? Because the reach is huge. because the way that you share should be to enrich others as a result of sharing, rather than purely to serve yourself. And if you're looking to purely serve yourself all the time, you're going to isolate yourself, or at the very best, you're going to have a whole load of parasites latch onto you. In which case, the ideas are very of how not to brag. Always try and just throw in a little bit of extra information there. But otherwise, go and take a look at my video on narcissism, because a lot of the ways to not be a narcissist are very similar to the ways to how not to brag, especially on something like social media. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How often do you find yourself bragging on social media? Like I post very rarely, and I usually post far more when I either find something that's kind of cool or something that's, and I'm talking about my personal social media rather than YouTube, company Facebook, and all that kind of thing for Silver Mountain Coaching. But in regards to my personal stuff, I might put up the odd picture now and again. I might show off some stuff that I think is kind of cool or that looks good. I might share or like some stuff that's just funny or interesting. But otherwise, a lot of the stuff that I tend to post specifically from me is stuff that I'm annoyed about. Stuff that I feel needs action taken on it. And even then, I think one of the last posts I made about that was kind of a year or two ago. So it's like I don't make an awful lot of posts purely for the sake of going, look at how amazing this was. There's a time and a place for that, and it's usually during a conversation with a person sat in front of me that we're sharing over a specific thing and it becomes relevant, rather than just trying to show off. It doesn't help anyone if you're just trying to show off. So anyway, guys, as I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts, as I always do. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. No, later. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video later. Take care.